So while I tell you that the Dionne quintuplets saved the day for Madame Alexander, it's not like she didn't try to have her way with other celebrity dolls, and I wanted to show you a few of them. She did not have the license to make Shirley Temple dolls, but Madame Alexander very quickly realized, well, she could get a license from the author, the family of the author of The Little Colonel, which was one of the popular Shirley Temple films of the time, and that's what she did. And she made two Little Colonel dolls. The one in the front, the smaller one, wearing the very classic costume time of the period, of the 1860 period, and then the older girl, or the taller girl, wearing its original costume with the very famous hat from the film. So Little Colonel doll, they were popular and they sold well, but they never took over the Shirley Temple market. So she abandoned that. But she went to other child film stars over the years. Some of them not too well known. There was, in the middle, I'm showing you Baby Jane in her little red dress, and this was the young Universal starlet, Quigley, and she was, well, number one, she never became that famous a star. But other than that, the doll itself is very, very rare, and she's notable because she has her original tag on the back of her dress and has, if you look up you're looking like an international, what is it, the IMDb, the movie database, you can see photographs of what this young starlet actually looked like, Baby Jane Quigley, and then you will see that they actually did a pretty good job of recommending her. And then the beloved Jane Withers. She had the license for making the Jane Withers dolls, and she made them with open mouth and with closed mouth and variation of sizes and variation of costumes, and they were pretty good sellers for her as a celebrity doll. Not until, as the 1930 decade went on, did Madame really get a feeling for celebrity dolls, though, and know which ones would really take off. And I will tell you, Sonja Henie was a big winner for her. She did so many variations of Sonja Henie, and in this particular collection, I think there are like 8 different variations in different costumes, different sizes, always with that very beautiful face and very, very perfectly coiffed hair. Just wonderful. I suspect that a lot of the Sonja Henie, this is just my hunch, I don't know, but I think a lot of them were probably bought for older children, for teenage children, or even adults, because we do find them in such impeccable original condition. Beautifully done here. I love when you find an Alexander doll that has hair that is this perfectly kept from its original setting, you realize how much attention, laborious attention, went into every single aspect of these dolls. And then, of course, we have Margaret O'Brien, who came along at the end of the 1930s, and particularly about 1938, 1939, 1940. And so that was one of the other major celebrity dolls made by Madame Alexander. And in a minute, I'm going to show you the most successful one of all. And then came Gone with the Wind, 1939, and the immortal words of Scarlett, "As God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again." And I sometimes kind of think that maybe Madame Alexander took that as her mantra too, because that's the kind of work ethic and strong personality that she wanted to have, was to be strong. She could survive in anything. She got the license to make dolls from Gone with the Wind, and her Scarlett was so successful and so popular that we're going to show you a bounty of one she made. She perfected here what she had begun with the Dionne quintuplets. When you take a basic doll, you can change the costume, you can change the size, you can make other little nudging changes and have different dolls. I mean, the first two I want to show in particular because I think they are so extraordinary and so rare. Right here we have Scarlett, and she's wearing this magnificent yellow organdy gown with the purple silk ribbon trim, which is just absolutely so fine, worthy of dolls that were being made by French couturiers at the height of the French fashion movement back in the 1860s and 70s. I'm going to turn her around so you can see her hat, and you're going to see that there are I think like 3 or 4 different style of flowers on the hat, and they're repeated on the flowers that are in the front of her dress as well. Absolutely stunning beautiful doll, Scarlett, with her classic jet black hair. And then we have the doll that she marketed as Southern Beauty. We all kind of think maybe this was Melanie, but at any rate, a very rare costume with the Southern Beauty mantra tag on her for in a marketing that was done. And I want to show you her bonnet because, again, she had absolutely beautiful flowers on her bonnet. And I'll turn her around so you can see her beautiful costume all the way around. She has that wonderful tag that people look for, the octagon gold paper tag, and a beautiful complexion, and always a beautiful, beautiful coiffure. And I'm going to move these out of the way now, and I'm going to step back so you can have a sweeping view of some of the varieties of dolls that were made by Madame Alexander to portray that classic heroine, Scarlett O'Hara. Always the jet black hair, perfectly groomed, perfectly coiffed in the examples you see here, but such variations of costumes. And sometimes the variations of costumes would simply be the way the pattern was repeated on the doll. For example, on the far left, we have a doll that has very, very similar pattern, but it's arranged differently, vertically or horizontally. And in one of them, there's a green velvet bodice, and the other just has the printed cotton fabric on the bodice, but does have a green velvet coat that comes with her. We see next to them two dolls in different sizes, but actually the same costume. On the right-hand side, I have a party of 5 of the small Scarletts, and every dress is different. Same style basically, but with a few variations, but then different fabrics to build her market, to have different choices for people to come to the store and say, oh, I like this dress or I like that dress, and maybe even buy a whole garden party full of them. And in the back, you have some of the larger versions of the composition Scarletts that were done, and again, with variations. For example, the 2 at the front, both are wearing a gold organdy dress underneath a taffeta coat. The coat on the left is that rich emerald green taffeta, solid color, and the one on the right is the ribbon striped. And so a very, very slight variation of changes. Madame could create entirely different markets and different fashion choices. She was really developing her whole concept of the idea of fashion dolls at this point. As we go into our part 4 of this video series, you're going to see 2 dolls that continue Madame Alexander's fascination with Scarlett and Southern Girl or Melanie, and 2 of the important 1946 fashion models that were made. Remember, this is 1939. The Depression is just ending. We haven't gone into the war years yet, although war drums are beating all over Europe. But Scarlett was that Gone with the Wind movie came out, and it was so powerful all over America. So Madame was so prescient and so wise in obtaining a license to make these dolls. And that is another thing that it didn't save the day for her, but it made the day, and it led to her beautiful portrait dolls that were the signal of American fashion and that were coming up in the end of the 1940s.